when you're in the opposition, you've been writing really fast and trying to get things down in your flow. And the first thing a lot of the opposition leaders have wanted to do is get right into the refutation. So the first bit of feedback I would give is, be sure to do all those top of the speech things that we've talked about in terms of structuring a good constructive speech. So give an easily identifiable team line right at the top. And I think, where you were going with the refutation, there was definitely an idea for a team line in there. The idea of freedom of expression and freedom of information. That came out as you were going through the refutation, but let that come out at the top of the speech. Even be as direct as to say, the opposition today stands against this ban that the government is proposing because we stand for freedom of expression and we think that's the most important value that all of us in the House should consider today. I think say it that directly and make sure it comes right at the top of the speech, because that way you're forecasting for the entire room the strategy that the opposition team is going to take. So that's the one bit of feedback in terms of the top of the speech I would give you. As well, jumping right into the refutation, what it did is that we didn't get a really clear overview of where you were going later in the speech in terms of the new arguments you were going to present for your side and so forth. So be sure to get that preview overview in there. For the refutation, you talked about the Prime Minister's two arguments, which was good. So you had the paraphrase of the arguments. I knew which one you were talking about, and you did a good job of starting to call into question the reasoning, but the refutation arguments really didn't have evidence to support them. So I think, after the speech, I was more likely to believe the Prime Minister just because the Prime Minister did offer me some specific examples to support the original arguments, and we just didn't get some counter examples from the opposition side. So that's the one thing that needs to be added there. And I think one thing that happened as well, and this has happened for a lot of other opposition leaders, the time that you spent on refutation was a little heavily weighted toward refutation, and it didn't leave you very much time to develop your own arguments. So the new arguments that you presented were somewhat lacking in development, and I think it was an issue of so much time had been invested in refutation that by the time you got to some of the unique arguments to your side, there wasn't a lot of time left to explain them. So those are my comments about matter. A couple of comments about manner. One simple one, set your pen down when you speak. Just because when you're gesturing, that way you're not waving the pen at the audience.
I have a pen.
You had the pen. I know. You probably didn't even realize it. And it's very easy for the opposition leader and everyone after the Prime Minister to do because you've all been writing notes furiously to flow the debate. So, you've got it in your hand. It's kind of become glued to so just try to remember to set it down and get it out of your hand. One thing to work on delivery-wise, too, is making a little more direct eye contact with the audience. And I think at some points you were looking out or over to the side, probably trying to gather your thoughts about the next bit of refutation or the next argument you're going to present. But it's important to keep some of your focus out here, look at your audience, kind of read our nonverbal communication to see if we're understanding where you're going with arguments, because sometimes you can get some information on that by looking at the audience. So there are a lot of advantages to making more direct eye contact. An interesting theme came out later in the speech that I thought maybe could have been your team line, had you presented it really right at the top, that instead of banning, a theme that you brought out later was that it's better to teach. I thought that was a really interesting concept, and in all the oppositions I've seen today, no one has taken that approach. I think that's a really unique approach that instead of banning something, let's make it a teachable moment. Let's look at the ugliness of terrorism and ask what we can learn to it. That could be a really strong advocacy for an opposition team in a round like this. So I wanted to point that out in terms of, a really good thought process behind that, and that would be a nice theme to see more fully developed in opposition to a case like this. But a really good thing that really came later, and you're too late in the speech to become a major part of it, but a good idea that I wanted to mention to you because it really added to my thinking about the issue. A final thing then about manner, it's a simple thing, but in addition to setting the pen down, try to let your arms rest at the side of your body more when you're not gesturing. You tended to keep your arms close to your body, which closed off your gestures a little bit and kind of restricted the extent to which you could illustrate some of your ideas with your hands. So that's something to just think about, and as we continue doing practice rounds, work on it a little bit. I want to thank you both again for a good debate. This was fun.
Thank you.
Yeah.